Well, the NXT brand is moving on up in the world, as it was announced this week that NXT is going to be moving from the USA Network, who has picked up SmackDown now from Fox, but has not yet renewed Raw. So that one is still up in the air. But the USA Network has let go of NXT. They've switched it up for SmackDown, and so the NXT show will now be moving over to the CW network. And while that does not sound like a major network to some, the CW is network television, so it is able to basically be picked up from an antenna. So you could just be out in the middle of the woods with your fucking tinfoil up in the air, and you might be able to pick up a signal of whoever the fuck on NXT, Braun Breaker, smashing somebody in half. This is a big deal for the NXT brand. This is said to be a 70% increase from what they were making over at the USA Network. The exact numbers have not been released as of yet, but the deal is said to be somewhere between $20 and $25 million annually. So that's, roughly a $100 million deal over 5 years. It was a 5-year deal that was signed. This is huge. Very, very big deal for the CW network, who does not get ratings in the amounts that pro wrestling can draw to it. Its top shows probably don't even really do 1 million, or maybe do 1 million. So this is a big, big get for them. But you may be wondering, Seth, hold up a minute. I thought Billy Corgan just announced like a week ago that the NWA had signed a deal or had a TV deal to have 2 shows on the CW. The Power show and the reality show. Well, if you had heard that, you would be wrong. And this is, of course, the latest example of the pro wrestling Mandela effect, where you thought you knew something to be true, and in fact, it's not, and it never happened. So, shh. Of course, that's what Billy Corgan might want you to think, but that's not exactly what happened. So what did happen? Could it be the irresponsible cocaine spot that everybody's throwing a fit about? You guys got a problem with a little bit of cocaine? Cocaine's fine. Everybody likes a little bit of cocaine, right? Cocaine's good. Cocaine's fine. You just take a little bit of cocaine, you get to get up, you get your day started, you get a lot of things done. A lot of things done is really, really good. Cocaine is a good drug. Ask Tony Khan. You guys being haters about it. But regardless, was it the cocaine deal that fucked this up for Billy Corgan and the NWA? Well, maybe, maybe not. As Mike Johnson sat down to sort all this out. Yes, I'm finally getting to the clip. Mike Johnson sat down with Eric Bischoff and John Alba over on the Strictly Business podcast this week to sort all of this out. As Mike Johnson is obviously a wrestling dirt sheet reporter, but he is also comes from the TV business. This is sort of his area of expertise. So let's go ahead and check on in with this clip and see, Mike Johnson kind of break all this shit down for us.
CW was talking to a number of different people in the wrestling industry. They, obviously there's discussions. Oh, there's an NWA deal. No one from the CW end ever told me there was, but certainly on the NWA end, there were people whispering, oh, we've heard this, we've heard that. But I know they were talking to Dave Marquez Productions about potentially doing a live show every week out of Los Angeles. And it got to the point that they were doing blueprints for sets and strategies for our advertising and marketing and things like that. But then, the giant ship that is WWE came looming in like Godzilla. And if you're CW, are you going to go with an upstart, or are you going to spend a little bit more and go with the industry leader and know that you've got a built-in audience? And I think that's what happened here, is that rather than going with something that they would have had to help build from ground up, they went with something that, even though NXT amongst the wrestling fans is considered like the third tier brand, to the outside world, it's still WWE. So there's a built-in audience there, no matter what brand it is.
So there's a lot of ground I want to cover there that you just hit on, because I think there's a lot of layers. And I want to start with that NWA thing, because when the CW deal was announced first with NXT the other day, or when you broke the news first, I should say, immediately everyone was like, well, what happened to this NWA deal that had been reported? And there was the note that indicated that the cocaine segment that Billy Corgan had greenlit might have affected that. What is your read on all that? Because that's what every wrestling fan is curious about.
Okay, so here's my read on that. You cannot tell me that a 2-second spot on a pay-per-view that only aired on Fight.tv was going to be such a big deal, and so many people watched it on Fight that the entire universe wrote in horror like Alderaan had been blown up in Star Wars, and went to CW Network and said, how could you put this on your TV when it was never going to be on their TV to begin with? I don't believe there's any bearing on that spot and the CW deal happening or not happening. What I believe happened is Billy Corgan and his crew were selling this. I heard it was a 12-episode reality series about Billy running the NWA, and I would assume other aspects of Billy's life. Now, the WWE deal doesn't start until the fall of 2024.
Right.
The CW network could put a 12-week show on tomorrow and air it for a couple of months, and then it's done. So that, it's still possible that show could air in some way, shape, or form on the CW network just before the WWE deal officially kicks in and they start paying WWE. Because in my heart of hearts, I don't believe for a second WWE is letting any other wrestling on a network that they're currently on.
So, Mike, I just want to make sure I understand. I was led to believe, not believe, but I read on social media that CW was considering an NWA wrestling series. And, oh, by the way, there's a reality series. What I'm hearing you say is there's a reality series, but there was no confirmation. And
I don't mean to cut you off. I've never heard anything from anyone in the broadcast industry that I speak to, and I speak to a lot of people in that world, because that's the world, the entertainment world is what I worked in before I did this for a living. And I haven't heard from anybody on the CW network, and I've written some pretty high up people there that have come back to me and said, yeah, we're in discussions with Corgan. The show's definitely happening. This is 100% true. What I believe happened is, I think they probably had, I'm saying probably had conversations about the reality show. And in those conversations, it was like, oh, and we have a wrestling show too. And if you guys would like this, maybe you could put it on your app. Maybe you that's what my guess is.
That would be natural. That makes sense.
Right. And
that's my guess.
So, as stupid as the cocaine spot may have been when you're trying to lock down a TV deal with a major network like the CW, for me, my personal taste, who cares? I don't get offended easy, so I'm not butthurt over a cocaine spot. But I would say if you're in the middle of a TV deal, it is in poor taste. Rumors are now that the NWA locker room is pretty frustrated. I'm sure they were all very excited and kind of pumped to get the opportunity to be on TV, and they were all built up for this. And now they are led to believe that this opportunity was blown, possibly because it was their own boss, Billy Corgan, who he insisted on the cocaine spot. But Mike Johnson here, he doesn't think it was the cocaine spot. And you know what? I kind of see where he's coming from. I'm with him on this one, because one little cocaine spot ain't going to blow a full-fledged TV deal if they're like, everybody's on board and it's all but signed, the ink hasn't dried yet or whatever. It's not going to be that. But what it would be NXT. NXT, the WWE monolith, the major fucking entity that is the WWE. Nobody's going to be able to compete with that. Not even AEW could. If Warner Brothers decided they wanted to be in the WWE business now, they could pick up Raw and fucking tell AEW to go kick rocks. That's a possibility. I don't think it will, because I think the Raw deal doesn't start in 2024, and AEW is signed through 2024. So I don't think that'll end up being the case, but you get the point. NXT came in and they just pushed everybody else out. Mike Johnson even said that there were other pro wrestling from Hollywood was in talks with producing a show for the CW. And that makes me wonder, even like Freddie Prinze Jr. What's he got going on? What kind of TV deal could he scoop up? Being a guy in Hollywood, he's got just as good of a chance at getting something off the ground as a Billy Corgan does at this point. And make no mistake, the NWA moniker isn't enough to carry the NWA. It's Billy Corgan's indie promotion. He's trying to get it on a national level, just like everybody else. But right now, it's a little indie fed. You know, when Freddie Prinze Jr. steps into the wrestling business, he could step in and be right there in competition with Billy Corgan. MLW's right there in competition with them. If Pro Wrestling from Hollywood was talking to the CW, they're obviously trying to get something going. OVW has their reality show on Netflix. That's raising OVW's stock huge. I mean, OVW had a name value because of their association with WWE back in the day. But now with Netflix, it's kind of popping back up again on the radar. So there's lots of competition out there. And Billy Corgan is not above any of those others other than he is Billy Corgan. You know, and a Freddie Prinze Jr. would be a good counter to that. It was in poor taste, but it didn't cost them the deal. It was NXT moving in that cost them the deal. But regardless, it should have never been announced or even talked about if it wasn't signed and secured and it wasn't on the dotted line. Now, Mike Johnson, who says that he has talked to people within the CW now, take everything with a grain of salt, obviously, even me in my opinion here. But Mike Johnson had indicated that people in the CW had said that they were interested in the reality show, mostly because Billy had pitched it including his wedding. So it's essentially a reality show of Billy Corgan from the Smashing Pumpkins, who happens to be doing this little side hobby of a wrestling show, with no mention of a side possible wrestling show to go along with it. Could have just been very much the same kind of thing that OVW has with Netflix. A behind-the-scenes show of, this NWA thing going on. But, Billy had been very clear that they were going to pick up both shows, that Power was going to be going there. It was set in stone.
I can now say for the first time, and I have to be a bit vague because there's some other political aspects to this, but I can now say that we finally have signed not just one, but 2 television deals, and that announcement as far as where and who will be coming soon. But we finally now will be able to move off YouTube, not exclusively because we want to still do stuff on YouTube, but we now will be moving with a network partner.
But if the lines were not signed, if the T's were not crossed, the I's were not dotted, it was not notarized, it was not legal yet, it was still going through the process, and they had the option to cancel. Boom. NXT comes up on the market. They bid hard, 70% higher than what NXT is making right now. It's a huge deal for NXT, huge deal for the CW, not a great deal for the NWA and Billy Corgan. But that's just my thoughts and my opinions. What do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments below. Do you think the CW is right to choose NXT over NWA? Obviously. Do you think NWA blew it with the cocaine spot, or do you think it was just a matter of WWE is a bigger brand, bigger opportunity? It's a no-brainer. If you're looking for a wrestling company and WWE is one of those options, you spend a little bit extra than you were going to spend and you get WWE. But I do want to know your thoughts. Leave them in the comments below. Peace, love, and pizza. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next. Oh, yeah. Thanks for checking out the video. Yeah. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like it if you liked it. Yeah. And you can check out full episodes each and every Sunday right here on the channel. Oh, yeah. Dig it.